Earlier today, the Republican Party announced a major effort to figure out why the 2012 election went so very wrong for so many of their candidates, including their presidential nominee. The 8-part effort will look at failures in the party's ground game, as well as its message, its fundraising, other campaign issues. It'll also take a closer look at the racial changes in the U.S. electorate, the impact of third-party groups, the presidential primaries, and what the Democrats did right. One of the co-chairs who will lead the effort is the former Bush White House press secretary, Ari Fleischer, who's also a CNN contributor. Ari, thanks very much for coming in.
Thank you, Wolf.
The RNC communique or press release, RNC launches new initiative to grow the party and win. All of these were like technical issues, though, the 8 points that I just pointed out. I don't see any effort to rethink policy matters on sensitive issues, some of which clearly hurt Republicans, including the presidential nominee this time. Is your mandate also to look at changes in sensitive policy areas?
Well, if I wanted to say that when you look at overall messaging, that's a technical issue. That's a very important major issue. It's one of the things that either pulls people toward a party or drives people away from a party. In terms of specific policies, you know, that's Congress has the lead on that. The Republican National Committee does not. But I think you can assume there's going to be some messaging around the things that conservatives believe in that we need to do better and do stronger.
So, for example, on the sensitive issue like same-sex marriage, gay marriage, will it be your mandate to take a look and see whether or not Republicans should rethink their opposition to gay marriage?
No, well, as I said, that's Congress's purview is to make the laws and make the policies. Parties don't make the policies, and we're not going to go down that road. But let me give you an example. It's been said in the past that President Bush is the one who said this. Family values don't stop at the Rio Grande. That was his approach to Hispanic issues. And then he got 44% of the Hispanic vote. In this cycle, we got 27%. I happen to believe, Wolf, and I think a lot of Republicans do, that there's a lot you can do to attract people, to talk to people, to identify with the needs and the concerns of people in a way that grows a party. You don't have to change your ideology. The ideological issue is important because the exit polls found out 35% of Americans identify as conservative, just 25% as liberal. We remain a center-right country, but Republicans are losing elections.
I
think, Wolf, Republicans have, and I think we have an intellectual and a political responsibility to examine ourselves and find out why.
Because every 4 years, the Republican Party, like the Democratic Party, they have a platform in which they do spell out the Republican Party's position on these sensitive issues. One of the most sensitive, you raised it, immigration reform. Should the Republican Party, in order to attract more Hispanics, for example, reach out and support comprehensive immigration reform, including a pathway to citizenship for 11 or 12 million illegal immigrants here in the United States?
Yeah, nothing's changed since my last answer. The policy issues are going to be handled through the Congress and through the elected representatives of the people. We still have an obligation, though, to look at the party mechanics, the voter database, the fundraising, and the overall messaging. That's the charge of this group.
Yeah, I'll read you a line from Maureen Dowd's column in the New York Times yesterday. She was talking about the future of the Republican Party, and you guys are going to be taking a close look at how to improve the Republican Party. She writes this. She writes, the Mayans were right, as it turns out, when they predicted the world would end in 2012. It was just a select world. The GOP universe of arrogant, uptight, entitled, bossy, retrogressive white guys. The point she was trying to make is that when it came to Hispanics, African Americans, women, for example, young people, the Republicans didn't do that well. When it came to white guys, the Republicans still do well.
And that's why I salute Chairman Reince Priebus for forming this committee to take a look at these very heart and soul issues of what makes a party win. And America is changing. And if you don't change with a country while maintaining your principles and your ideology, but making those principles more sellable, more believable, more heartfelt in the middle of the country and in all wings of the country, you're not doing your job. And, you know, Ronald Reagan was able to do that, Wolf. Ronald Reagan was able to keep a very conservative base and make it attractive to the middle. I think there's room in the Republican Party to be a conservative party that has ideas that sell not only with a conservative base, but sells with a group that's much bigger because our ideas are good ones. And so we cannot be a party of just white people. That's not going to cut it. And when Ronald Reagan was elected, 88% of the voters were white. Today it's 72%. You do the math.
So how do you go out and reassure non-whites out there, whether Hispanics, African Americans, that the Republican Party is a big tent, all-inclusive kind of party. For example, Ronald Reagan, you point out, what he used to talk about.
Yeah. Well, first of all, you have to have candidates who don't make tragic mistakes. And I'll go right to Indiana and Missouri. We repelled women, our candidates there did, with the statements that they made. And they lost elections that absolutely should have been won by the Republican candidates with the statements they made about rape in Missouri and the statements they made in Missouri. And so that's a part of this, too. The way Republicans present their ideas, we have the best ideas. We have the ideas that give people a chance to climb the economic ladder and make it in this country. That's our message, and that's a message that resonates everywhere. But you have to let people know you care about them. You have to let them know that their life is important to you and that the things that they're going through, the suffering and the difficulties, are things that you can identify with, and you have the best solution to them. And that's where Republicans, my issue sometimes is we talk too much like accountants and not enough about people who care about other people's futures. And that's where the Republican Party has got to keep its ears open. We have to learn, Wolf. We lost in 2012, not only in the presidential, but in Senate races we should have won with both Tea Party candidates and with mainstream candidates.
So when will you come up with your recommendation? This new group.
I'm sorry?
When are you going to come up with your recommendations to the chairman of the party?
We're going to do this for about 3 or 4 months or so. I think our recommendations are going to be ready to go to the chairman probably in the late winter, early spring time frame.
We'll be anxious to see what you guys come up with. Ari Fleischer, our CNN contributor, thanks very much.
Thank you, Wolf.
We're watching several developments.